صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردن الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining us on our last program for Ashura. Tonight concludes our programs for this event. We appreciate all of you attending this program. And without further ado, let's invite our speaker, Seyed Abbas Razavian, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. One of the last letters of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is that letter that we read last night, and it is to Muhammad Hanafiya, some say to Bani Hashim, and it is the last letter. They say it is from Karbala. So this statement is a powerful statement, it's an important statement. كأن الدنيا لم تكن وكأن الآخرة لم تزل. That the world as if it has never been, and the hereafter as if it has always been. As if the world doesn't exist, has never existed, and the hereafter has always been existing. Giving importance that the akhirat is true existence, and that the dunya is just a path for us, is a bridge for us to reach the akhirah. So when we look at this letter of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we understand that we talked about how important the hereafter is. It is the role of the prophets to awaken us of the hereafter. We talked about Imam Ali alayhi salam going in the marketplace and reminding people of Ma'ad, of the hereafter. We talked about Imam Sadiq alayhi salam teaching, telling people about Ma'ad after Salat al-Isha, for example. So we want a good hereafter because the dunya, we know, is passing by very fast. How can we guarantee our hereafter? What is one of the best ways? Tonight is the last majlis we have, and I think this is an appropriate discussion for tonight and based on this letter too. How can we guarantee our hereafter? What is the best way to guarantee our hereafter? It is connecting Ma'ad to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Meaning that we connect Imam Hussein and we want and we ask Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And our most important need is, you see, in our du'as, in even the lengthy du'as we have, there's usually one du'a, and that's always meaning freeing our necks from the hellfire. So therefore, if we don't get this from Imam Hussein alayhi salam, as if we have gotten nothing, because we have a threat in front of us. It's a threat of going into eternal damnation. And if we don't reach this, and if we don't get it in Muharram, in Safar, inshallah, even though this program is ending, I still recommend that Muharram and Safar is the months of ziyarat of Ahlul Bayt, is the month of having majalis of Imam Hussein, months of crying for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Inshallah, you continue it. But therefore, the hereafter will be guaranteed, inshallah, with the shafa'at and intercession of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So tonight we're going to be talking about shafa'at and intercession. And this is one of the most important things that we can get from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. When you look at, for example, the Quran, and I ask you this, many of you are reciters of the Quran or have read the Quran many times, have read tafsirs. What is the most hopeful verse in the Quran? Which verse gives us the most hope of forgiveness, of prosperity for us? Which verse is the most hopeful? Yes, that's a very important verse. The brother mentioned that أَيَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not, those that have sinned, those that have transgressed, do not have despair. Allah will forgive all sins. It is a verse that guarantees, do not have despair. God will forgive all sins. So when we look at this, and actually in the hadith it's the same way. Imam Ali alayhi salam in tradition tells the people of Iraq and says that, people of Iraq, you think that the most hopeful verse in the Quran is this verse, as you mentioned, 39:53. But we Ahlul Bayt, and then the narrator, he says, Inna lanaqulu dhalik, we say the same thing, we say that. But Imam Ali alayhi salam says, actually there's another verse in the Quran that is even more hopeful than a verse that is talking about forgiving all sins. That's talking about do not have despair in God's mercy. Anything higher than this? Usually, in the nights of Ramadan, speakers usually will bring this verse, as we mentioned, because to talk about whatever you did, you cannot have despair. Despair is a big sin. God will forgive all sins. But Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, Imam Ali alayhi salam, is a representative of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, says, وَلَكِنَّكَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ نَقُولُ, we Ahlul Bayt say this verse is the highest. إِنَّ أَرْجَى آيَةً فِي كِتَابِ اللَّهِ وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. 93:5, and your Lord is going to give you, O Prophet Muhammad, until you will be satisfied. 93:5. Sofa in Arabic means in the distant future, because we have fi'l al-mudari, can mean present or future. When you put sofa, it means future, but also means distant future, meaning in the hereafter. So in the hereafter, we will give you so much, Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Until you are satisfied, you will save so many people from hellfire. So many people, so many people, so many people, until you are satisfied. Imam Ali alayhi salam is basically saying the shafa'at of the Nabi, which all Muslims say this verse refers to shafa'at, intercession. Sunni, Shia, even possibly Wahhabis, everyone says this verse refers to intercession, that the Prophet will come and he will be a mediator, and he will take those that are going to go to hell and he will save them. So you see the power of shafa'at in the Quran, that the most hopeful verse is the verse about the intercession of the Holy Prophet of Islam in the Quran. And unfortunately, sometimes I feel maybe inshallah it's not true. Sometimes we do less tawassul and beseech the Prophet of Islam less sometimes. If you really think and you concentrate on Rasulullah, read his history and think about him, you will not find a kinder and more compassionate human being than Rasulullah. You will not find anybody. Yes, and not to someone to do ishkal to us, I'm not saying this. When we talk about Imam Ali, at the same time we're praising the Prophet, because that is a teacher-student relationship. When you praise the student, you're praising the teacher. But individually, you even say in our salat, وَتَقَبَّلْ shafa'atahu, you say, it's good to say in salat when you talk about in your tashahhud, to accept the shafa'at of the Prophet for us, to accept the shafa'at of the Holy Prophet. So sometimes I feel maybe we don't do as much tawassul to the Holy Prophet, or think and cry for the Holy Prophet of Islam. As it's all connected, of course. It doesn't matter if you cry for Imam Hussein, it's the same as if you cry for the Prophet. But in general, this is just a note. Another tawassul that sometimes we forget a lot, then I think there's a lot of emphasis should be, and today was the day of Friday, is to our master and our Mawlana Imam Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That a lot of us, we forget sometimes, we're neglectful of doing dua for his, to come out of occultation, to reappear, or to connect ourselves in the problems that we have, or to, we don't understand how he is helping the Shia, how he's helping the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. That when, we call in dua nutba, أَيْنَ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ الَّذِي يَتَوَجَّهُ إِلَيْهِ الْأَوْلِيَاء. Where is the path? Some say wajh here means path, some even say it means face. Where is the face of God? Wajh, means face, or you could say path. It would be face by this way, where is that person that is the embodiment of all the good attributes of God? Where is that, the manifestation of God's mercy, the manifestation of God's power, walking in this earth, walking in this earth. Or the sabab, being ard wa sama, where is the connector between the sky and the earth? So sometimes it's even the day of Friday passes and we don't do a tawassul. Our maraji, mushtahid, some of them are very keen that on the afternoon of Friday to do ziyarat ala Yasin. Because it's a ziyarah, you say salam to Imam Zaman, you do ziyarat of him on the day of Friday. Because day of Friday is known to be the dhuhr of Imam Zaman. Also there's hadith on Saturday, but generally it's known on Friday. So it's a day of tawassul for Imam Zaman. Dua nutbah you see in the morning is recited. Those that do it or in the morning or throughout the day. And ziyarat Ali Yasin. And especially even some of the maraji or mushtahids, when they send a group for Hajj, and they understand that is Imam, in the hadith it says Imam Mahdi Ajallahu Ta'ala Faraja will come to Hajj every year, they say that is a good time to do ziyarat Ali Yasin. Because you're so close to Imam Zaman. He's somewhere there, because we have in the hadith. He's somewhere there, so he specifically said for the Ba'tha, to make sure in the morning of the day of Arafah to do ziyarat Ali Yasin. Same person that does ziyarat Ali Yasin every Friday in the afternoons. So we shouldn't forget this shafa'at. So therefore, from the Quran, we understand that the most important verse of hope is intercession. When we look at the Quran and we open up the discussion of intercession, you see, just like many other ideologies or many other topics in theology, there are two types of verses, two categories of verses. When it comes to intercession, shafa'at, you have verses that say there is no shafa'ah, there's no intercession. And then there are verses that says, yes, there is intercession with his permission, basically. You have verses like, the days that there's no bay' fi, wala khulla, wala shafa'a. So you have verses in Surah Baqarah, for example, or no, this isn't possible, maybe it's in Surah Baqarah, but you have verses that say that there's no shafa'a. Then you look at the other hand side, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يَشْفَعُ عِنْدَهُ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِهِ. So who is it that can intercede with him but by his permission? So you understand there are those that give shafa'at with his permission. Or you have, for example, لا يملكون الشفاعة إلا من اتخذ عند الرحمن أحدا. There shall be no control intercession save he who has made a covenant with the beneficent God. So illa, this person or this category of people. So when you put these two categories together, how do you solve this problem of the Quran saying there's no shafa'ah, and then there's shafa'ah that is good, that is accepted? You put them in this way, that how were the Arabs, of course the Quran is talking to polytheists. The Quran is talking to idol worshippers. How did the idol worshippers have shafa'ah? They thought that their idols were shafi'ah for them. They thought this idol and that idol and that idol will do something for them in this world or in the hereafter. Usually their belief was there's one Allah, there's one creator, but they thought there are other deities in the world. So therefore, the Quran, you understand, is saying when you say there's no shafa'ah, it's talking to them. Oh, idol worshippers, this type of shafa'at that you're thinking of, that you're practicing is wrong. There's no shafa'at. This idol worshipping is wrong. But the verses that talk about with permission or later on can be explained this way, that through this path that Allah has allowed, you can do shafa'at. Allah has allowed to ask them, these people, these holy figures. And you see throughout the Quran, specifically stories like the brothers of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam asking their father for forgiveness, and in the Quran, and the father doesn't say, no, I'm not going to seek forgiveness for you. He says, I will seek forgiveness for you. And actually he waits until Thursday night to ask forgiveness for them. Or you see verses in the Quran that talk about the Prophet of Islam being capable of doing shafa'at, for example. And this is salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajahum. ولو أنهم إذ ظلموا أنفسهم جاءوك فاستغفر الله واستغفر لهم الرسول لوجدوا الله توابا رحيما. 463. And if when they wrong themselves they have come to you, O Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, and asked forgiveness of Allah and the Messenger, they had asked forgiveness for them, and the Messenger had asked forgiveness for them, they would have found Allah accepting of repentance and merciful. So if they come to the Prophet and ask for forgiveness, and the Rasul does ask for forgiveness for them, Allah will be acceptance of repentance and is merciful. So very clearly you see from the Quran putting these verses, and that is why a person has to not just focus on one set of verses. You have to incorporate the entire Quran, and you have to read all the narrations. But right now we're just reading the Quran. So we have verses that say there's no shafa'at, and we explained that. That type of shafa'at, that's batil. Intercession, that's batil. That's not allowed. Then you have verses that say it's allowed, but for who? Those that approach Prophet Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now the problem that some of our the Wahhabis have, the problem is this. They accept shafa'at. They say, yes, there is shafa'at. But the problem that they have is that they say that the spirit is annihilated. After death, there's no more spirit. Because there's no more spirit, even the Prophet of Islam, even the prophets, even good people, there's no more spirit. The spirit will later on be created in the hereafter, or the body will be created. Because there's annihilation of the soul, they believe. They say, therefore, what you're doing is either useless or it's haram, it's not allowed. When the Prophet dies, they say, when the Prophet is alive, you can do shafa'ah. Ask them when he's alive, and you have the Quran clear, obviously, and there's a clear verse. You come to the Prophet, Allah is tawaban rahima. But after he passes away, then you cannot do shafa'at anymore. How can we answer this question in shafa'at? First of all, we say, when you look at verses like, وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى, and Allah will grant you so much until you're satisfied. These verses have itlaq, or absolute, we understand. It doesn't mean, shafa'at is something only while he's living. You can't ask for it after he passes away. It's already by itself, when someone reads the Quran and understands, it already has that itlaq. It already has it. It already is absolute. Why would you divide? It doesn't make even sense to divide before and after. Where did you get that from? You have to show us proof that while the Prophet is alive, it's allowed. After he passed away, it's not allowed. Show us that proof. Second of all, if that's not enough, we have specific arguments that say that the soul does not become annihilated after death. The soul does not become annihilated. Let's look at some of the arguments presented by some of our mutakallimeen that say death is not the annihilation of man, that we have a spirit. One of those, the first proof, is this proof. Very famous verse in the Quran. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٌ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. And do not speak of those who are slain in Allah's way as dead. They are alive, but you do not perceive. They have hayat. Those that are martyred have hayat. So very specifically, these verses are talking, or this verse is talking about, that when someone is martyred, there is life for him. So it already invalidates their proof that say that that everyone that passes away, that there's annihilation of the soul. The Quran is specifically saying, ahya, they are alive. Two, when you look at some of the words used in the Quran, for example, قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ, that the angel of death who is in charge of the spirit shall cause you to die. Tawaffa in Arabic, or tawaffi here, means to snatch, to take. It doesn't mean to annihilate. It means to take. So what are they taking when you're taking from them? Your spirit. So the spirit is alive. Third of all, Prophet Saleh in the Quran, he speaks to the dead. He speaks to those that are in the grave. Why would a prophet speak to those in the grave if they don't even hear it? Would it make sense for a prophet to speak to a rock? No, that rock doesn't have life. So obviously when Prophet Shu'aib is having a conversation with those that are in the grave, I'm going to read the verse. This is the third proof. Obviously they are alive, or else he wouldn't talk to them. You see that very clearly in Surah Al-A'raf. It talks about an earthquake happening. I'm not going to read the Arabic because we don't have much time. And then it says after that earthquake happens, and then it says here they became motionless bodies in their abode. They died. And then the next verse, so that's verse 78. 79 says this, then he turned away from them and said, "O my people," they're already dead. It says, "Ya qawmi, laqad ablagtukum risalata rabbi." "O my people, I certainly delivered to you the message of my Lord." I delivered to you it says, "Ya qawm." He's speaking to them, saying, "Ya," so therefore they are alive. And very interesting here, that's Madi past tense. I have delivered the message of my Lord. I gave you advice. And then Prophet Saleh explains to them in mudari form, in present tense right now, وَلَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاسِحِينَ. But you do not like those that give advice. وَلَا تُحِبُّونَ النَّاسِحِينَ. He's talking to those that are dead. So this is our third proof that Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is speaking to those that are dead. So there's not annihilation of the soul. So the first proof was ahya'un in the Quran. It says they are alive. The second proof was when you look at words like yatawaffakum, you see that means to snatch, not to annihilate. 3, Prophet Saleh speaks to the souls of people. 4, the salutations that we send upon the prophets. Even in Sunni Hadith we have reciting salawat upon the Prophet and saying salam to him from far or near is clarified to the Prophet, receives him and he hears these salams and he answers these salams. We have clear narrations in Sunni sources. Or in the Quran when you have salamun ala Nuh fil alameen, salamun ala Ibrahim, salamun ala Musa, salamun ala Ali Yasin. Or when you say salamu alaykum and everyone has in tashahud, to the Prophet of Islam when you're in salat. Why would you send salams to the Prophet of Islam in salat if na'udhu billah his soul is annihilated? So therefore, from these 4 proofs, first of all, we say that it is absolute. Show us your proof that you cannot do tawassul after the Prophet of Islam has passed away, or to these figures. Second of all, we say these are verses in the Quran that show that there is life after death. There is a barzakh, there's a purgatory. That person is alive. Even then, there's hadith, other proofs that and this is on Wafa'ul Wafa. During the caliphate of the second Khalifa, there was famine. A person came near the grave of the Holy Prophet and said, "O Prophet, ask water for your people as they are being destroyed." Therefore, the Holy Prophet appeared to him in his dream and told him, "Go to the second Khalifa here and send salam upon him and inform him that all will soon be satiated with water." So it had clear hadith they even have that they come to the grave of the Prophet and they ask for water and he comes in a dream. So this all shows that he is listening, he is hearing, he is alive, and therefore we do shafa'at to answer, those that say that there's no shafa'at. So let's now talk about the purpose at the end. I wanted to talk about this. This is the last majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam for us, for this 10 days, 11 days of Muharram. When you look at the importance of shafa'at, I want to tell you a story. And I'll tell you the story, inshallah, and if there's time, I'll say those that cannot reach shafa'at. Is shafa'at something, intercession, absolute? Does it mean that we can do whatever we want and say, Ya Allah, Ya Muhammad, Ya Ali, and get forgiven for everything? Or are there criteria even to receive shafa'at? Is there things that you have to do to deserve it? One of the ulama by Sheikh Ja'far Shushtari, he was talking to himself. And he was a famous speaker, a very good person. And he was talking to himself about how he will enter heaven. And the first thing that he talked about was he criticized. You know, sometimes when you talk to yourself and you want to criticize yourself, you want to lower your ego. But for him, it was a reality. He was thinking, you know, maybe at an older age, he was at the age of 60, he told his nafs, you know, what have I brought for you? You know, what have I brought for myself in the hereafter? This is a question that all of us should ask when we talk about the hereafter. Right now, if, God forbid, we pass away, right now, what do we have? Let's think about, what do we have? So he first said this, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِرَ اللَّهُ وَجِلَتْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. The believers are those who, when Allah is mentioned, their hearts become fearful. He said to himself, do I become fearful when I remember Allah? Am I a mu'min? Because it says, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Innama in Arabic is exclusivity. The believers are only those that have this quality. He says, according to this verse, I'm not even a believer, he said. Allah meshushtan. He says, when I read the Quran, do I cry? Does my heart shake when I read the Quran? He's saying, not all the time. He said, he's scaring himself. What should I do now? I'm not even a mu'min, according to the Quran. 2, what good deeds do I have? What good deeds of attributes of akhlaq do I have that helps me, you know, like generosity and this? He said, do I have generosity? Do I have good akhlaq? He was criticizing himself. Do I have good ethical behavior? You know, we might get angry all the time. We might be generous, might be cheap sometimes. We might sometimes, na'udhu billah, hurt others with our mouths and what we say. What else do we have? Our akhlaq isn't good either. Our ethics, look at the akhlaq of the anbiya, look at the akhlaq of the awliya, and look at our akhlaq and how we treat people. And how those attributes of goodness, the good attributes, how much are they instilled in me? So he became sadder and sadder and sadder. So 2 strikes against the nafs. 3, he said, what am I going to bring in the hereafter? Salat, fasting, Hajj. These all have so many conditions. Did I really perform them right, all of them? It says, Allama Shushtari is saying, what about us? You know, I want us to reflect. This is the last night of our majlis, and I'm saying this to myself. My salat, my sawm, hajj were acts of worship. Did I really truly perform them with all their preconditions? He said, even if I did so, how do I know that riyah didn't make them batil? How did I know I wasn't showing off? When Mizanul A'mal is Ali ibn Abi Talib in the hereafter, and they check our A'mal, their correctness with Ali alayhi salam's actions. What is my salat compared to the salat of Imam Ali? What is my fasting compared to? I have nothing. I'm not even a mu'min. I don't have good ethics. And I don't have actions. I'm lost. So then he says, actually, now he talks about other arguments. Now the happy side. Let's not leave here with despair. He says, but I know this. And he tells himself, and really this is the only way, if you think about intercession, this is the only way. If you want to exactly look at Allah's adl and justice and fairness, none of us really deserve anything. It's only with His fadl and grace that we can deserve something. And His best fadl and grace is through shafa'at. This is the way that Prophet Adam, we don't say that he sinned, but the first mistake that happened that an insan did, the first mistake that happened, how was it cleared up? How was it fixed? They say by the dua that Prophet Adam did. Ya Muhammad, Ya Hamidu bihaqq Muhammad, Ya Ali bihaqq Ali, Ya Fatiru bihaqq Fatima, Ya Qadim al-Ihsan bihaqq al-Hasani wal-Husayn alayhi salam. He mad wa Ali Muhammad wa ajal farajah. The first tawassul in this, in this world, we could say, or in this, man after getting ikhtiyar and free will, it was by Prophet Adam and mentioning these five. So therefore he thinks to him, Allama Shushta thinks and says this. He says that we have hadith though, مثل أهل بيتي فيكم كمثل السفينة النوح من ركبها نجا. The example of Ahlul Bayt is the ship of salvation. Inshallah, they will save me. If I don't have actions, and this is why Muharram and Safar are so important. If I don't have good actions, if I don't have good akhlaq, if I don't qualify as a believer, if I don't qualify as a true Shia from those Safat Shia, those hadith that are really strict, I know that Imam Hussein is Safinatun Najah. I know that Imam Hussein, he tells himself, is the ship of salvation. He gets a little bit more calmer. Then he says to them himself this. Imam Hussein says, أنا قتيل العبر لا يذكرونني مؤمن إلا بكى. I am killed for tears. This is one translation, the one that's killed for tears, out of tears. Nobody remembers me except as mu'min. If that verse of the Quran excluded me from being a mu'min, this hadith has incorporated me as the mu'min because I've cried for Hussein. Only those that are crying for Imam Hussein are believers. So I'm I'm a mu'min, I'm a believer. But if I say I'm not a Shia, but then we have hadith, Shi'atana yansurunana wa yafrahuna bifarihina wa yahzanuna bihuznina. But our Shi'as, they assist us, they help us, they become happy with our happiness. They become grieved and sad with our grief. So I qualify as a Shia. So first he destroyed himself, and now through Hussein, he's saving himself and having hope. That I qualify for a believer now. I qualify for a Shia. If I said my salat wasn't Mi'rajul Mu'min and didn't take me towards Allah, it wasn't a good salat. But I visited Imam Hussein's shrine, and whoever visits Imam Hussein's shrine, كَمَنْ زَارَ اللَّهِ فِي أَرْشِهِ, as if he has visited Allah in his arsh, meaning that he has reached the highest, closest in proximity to Allah. If my salat is not invalid, but through ziyarat I have visited Allah. If I don't have good actions to enter heaven though, he says, my actions are void, he said. But I read this hadith, Ya Allah, Man baka wa abka wahidan falahul jannah. I spent my life on the mimbar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I cried and I made people cry. Wa man tabaka falahul jannah. And whoever makes people cry and cries himself or even fakes to cry or looks like he's crying, he will enter heaven. I have good deeds then. These are my good deeds. My deeds might not be valid. If you go through that strictness, they might not be accepted. But I cried for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. I know this is true. I know this is sincere. I know that I did not do this with riyah. Because when you cry for Imam Hussein, you don't become arrogant for crying. When you do salat, sometimes salatul layl, you become arrogant. You leave the realm of ubudiyat. But when you cry for Imam Hussein, you're crying because your champion, your hero has been martyred. Your champion, your hero has been martyred. So we know that Hussein alayhi salam, this action counts for me, crying for Imam Hussein. I've reached closeness to Allah through visiting Imam Hussein. I have the signs of the Shia because I am happy with their happiness and I'm sad with their sadness. Then at the end he says, if I know that these actions are accepted, but I know something. I have this hadith about shafa'at, that even if I don't qualify, he says, even if my ziyarat wasn't accepted, even if I don't qualify, we have hadith that a person that visits Imam Hussein alayhi salam can do shafa'at from 10 to 100 people. I know that I have some friends, I have some brothers, they are sincere. They are good. They are visitors of Imam Hussein. I know that even if my visitation doesn't get accepted, At the end, these brothers will come and save me because they will be granted shafa'at because of the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. So this shows us, brothers and sisters, that we are all in need of intercession. Even if someone passes and does good in this world, but they will not reach the ranks of Ahlul Bayt. They will not be able to be the neighbor of Ahlul Bayt because there's a big difference. So they have an average score. Shafa'at gives them a great score. So those that are average become great and they can be with Ahlul Bayt. And those that are failing, I point to myself, those that are failing, they will be able to be saved through shafa'at, through Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and they will pass. But again, I'm going to finish with this because we don't want people to misuse this. There are those that are al-mahrumuna min ash-shafa'ah. There are those that are prohibited from shafa'ah. For example, رجلان لا تنالهما شفاعتي صاحب السلطان عسوف غشوم وغال في الدين مارق. Two people, a tyrannical ruler basically, and a heretical extremist that did ghuluv to the Ahlul Bayt. They say, Na'uzubillah, they are God. Those that are dhulm, they do dhulm, they don't get shafa'at. They can't do dhulm and be a tyrannical ruler and say, I'm going to get shafa'at in Imam Hussein. Two, my intercession from the Prophet in Al-Khisal, my intercession is intended for those who have committed grave sins, except for those that are guilty of polytheism and injustice to others. Those that do dhulm, injustice to others, they will not receive shafa'ah. Another hadith, the Prophet of Islam, he who does not take his daily prayers seriously, istakhaffa bi salati ولا يرد علي الحوض والله لا ينال شفاعتي. He will not receive shafa'ah. Those that don't establish the prayers, they destroy prayers, they weaken prayers. So therefore we see dhulm, we see hurting people, we see those that don't take their prayer lightly, those that take their prayers lightly. Also in other traditions, this will be the last, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when he asked for his relatives to be gathered around him, and during his death, the last thing that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, verily our intercession will not avail for those who take their prayers lightly. So we see that there are guidelines, salat, dhulm, polytheism, and they will not receive shafa'at. So we still have to be very careful, but we are hopeful of intercession of the Prophet of Islam and his family members, inshallah. Either, as we said, we have average scores and we can get intercession to get a great score, or we have failing scores and inshallah get a score, a grade to pass, inshallah. This is our salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajal farajahum. On such a day like today, the caravan of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which is composed of women, children, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, which is sick, and they're walking along with the heads of Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his companions. They reach Kufa, and either today or tomorrow they'll be reaching Kufa around this time period. Their lady Zainab alayhi salam, she begins to talk to the people of Kufa. And actually here, this is another guideline we have. She is actually upset at the people of Kufa, even though they are crying. They are crying for Imam Hussein. They finally realize what they have done because they have written 10,000, 18,000 letters called Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein knew he would be martyred. We read that in the letters. But now they are sad because they see the head of Hussein ibn Ali. And the people of Kufa, they knew who Hussein alayhi salam was. They knew who Hassan alayhi salam was. They knew who Imam Ali alayhi salam was. And they know Lady Zainab. She's, for them, it's the Quran teacher that would teach them. They're women. So here they begin crying, and here Lady Zainab alayhi salam shows and talks to them very severely. And from this we understand that not every type of crying for Imam Hussein is good. that Kufan crying is not good for Imam Hussein. It's not accepted. Because we understand Lady Zainab did not say, okay, now you're crying for Imam Hussein, it's okay, now your sins are forgiven. Here, she is very severe when she talks to them. So much so, Bashir says, on that day I looked at her. By Allah, I have never seen any proud and modest woman with that eloquence. It was as if she was talking with Ali's tongue, as if Ali alayhi salam was there. She told people to be silent. People became silent. Even the bells on the camels stopped moving. When she told them to be quiet, everything was quiet. When she finished the sermon, Kufa was filled with emotions and sadness. But what does Ibn Ziyad do? What do people do so they can stop him? There might be a rebellion right there. It's the people of Kufa. Quickly, they showed the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam to Lady Zainab to distract her. They know the weakness of Lady Zainab. She loves Imam Hussein alayhi salam. They know it will distract her from her speech. And in the middle of her speech, then, she begins to talk and says these few lines to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Ya hilalan lamma statammun kamala. O new moon, that when you became full, she talks to the head of Imam Hussein, O new moon, when you became full, قَالَهُ خَسْفُهُ فَأَبَدَا غُرُوبًا. The eclipse snatched it and it began to set. O moon, they snatched you and they began, and an eclipse happened. مَا تَوَهَّمْتُ يَا شَفِيغَ فُؤَادِي. I didn't think, O part of my heart, كَانَ هَذَا مُقَدَّرًا مَكْتُوبًا, that this would be our destiny, this would be my destiny, that I would be here and your head would be on a spear, Hussein. I couldn't imagine this would be our destiny. Ya akhi Fatima as-saghira kallimha. Oh my brother, little Fatima, speak to her. Kada qalbuhu an yaduba. Speak to her, so surely it is close that her heart will melt. Speak to Fatima as-saghir. She cannot bear. Talk to her a little bit. And in Sham, you see what happens. One of the daughters of Imam Hussein gets that head of Imam Hussein and talks to that head, and does melt and does pass away and becomes proof of Imam Hussein's madlumiyat in Sham and Syria. Imam Hussein alayhi salam's head being taken to Ibn Ziyad, some of the narrators mention that it's mentioning verses of the Quran. An hasibta anna ashab al-kahfi wal-raqim kanu min ayatina ajaba. You think that the ashab of Kahf and Raqim are of the ajib and amazing signs of Allah? This is an amazing sign of Allah. Imam Hussein's head alayhi salam is reciting Quran. They take his head. They say that it is narrated that Ibn Ziyad takes the holy head of Imam Hussein. I apologize, Sahib al-Zaman. I apologize, brothers and sisters. It says that the narrator says, I saw that Ubaidullah using a stick and was hitting the lips and the eyes of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. There's Zayd ibn Arqam, a famous person, tells Ibn Ziyad, who was sitting there, Oh Ibn Ziyad, put away your stick, because I saw the Prophet putting his lips on these lips and mouth and kissing them. Ya Allah, we ask you because of the madlumiyat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. We ask you, inshallah, Ya Allah, give us the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the dunya and the shafaat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam in the akhirat, inshallah. Ya Allah, these 10 nights, 11 nights that we had together, inshallah, accept from us. Ya Allah, we ask you to continue the tawfiq, give us the tawfiq of remembering Imam Hussein and having majlis for him, inshallah, through this Muharram and Safar, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to expedite the return of our holy Imam, Imam Zaman, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you, because of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, to heal all of those that are sick. All of those that are in the grave, forgive them, inshallah. We ask you to give us munajat and halawat al-iman, give us sweet faith, give us the ability to talk to you, to truly connect with you, Ya Allah. May Allah expedite the return of our Imam Zaman and make us of his companions with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Also, if we have a lot of volunteers here, and I know they're busy at work at daytime, and inshallah for all the volunteers, you know, if we really knew, you have hadith that if we knew how much reward there was in the adhan, people would fight over it in this world. I believe the same thing about the majlis of Imam Hussein. If we really knew how great it was, everyone would be fighting to volunteer for Imam Hussein. So for all these volunteers, may they quickly get ziyarat and be rewarded, and they will be. Quickly give them, inshallah, ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Protect their families, inshallah, and give them a great reward, inshallah. Let's recite salawat for them. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil faraj.
Brothers, if you could please stand for the Latmiyah. From Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, 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 I left my heart in Karbala, Karbala, from Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, 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 I left my heart in Karbala, Karbala, from Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to I left my heart in Karbala, Karbala, the luminous moon lighting the way, the rising sun that brightens the day. Heaven without you would be in flames. You're the heaven in Karbala, Karbala. Your visitors offer you their hands. Enemies will never understand. How can the water lose to the sand? How can the thirst win in Karbala, Karbala? Oh, heaven is opening, Ya Hussein. Oh, angels descending, Ya Hussein. Oh, they are reciting Karbala, Karbala, from Karbala, 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 شوریده و شیدای توام شیرینی رویای منی شوریده و شیدای تو هم شیرینی رؤیای منی تا به قیامت پای تو هم دین منی دنیای منی آقای منی آقای منی در شب ظلمت ماه منی دلیل عشقی راه منی نماز روحم سوی تو و قبله من محراب منی آقای منی با شهیدان تو یا حسین بر سر خوان تو یا حسین به دلم حسرت کربلا کربلا from کربلا 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 لو قطعوني بدرب الحبيب لو يبعدوني وابقى غريب ساكن عيوني جسم السليب فدوى أروح الكربلاء كربلاء لو قطعوني بدرب الحبيب لو يبعدوني وابقى غريب ساكن عيوني جسم السليم فدوى أروح الكربلاء كربلاء لما أشوفك يا حسين حاشا أعوفك يا حسين فدوى أروح الكربلاء كربلاء from the hand of God that nurtures the young, the hand of God that nurtures the young, speaking for Allah, you are the tongue, separating the right from the wrong, elevated in Karbala, Karbala, the ship that sails swiftly through the waves, and whoever boards your ship is safe, immune from the punishments of the grave. Whoever mourns you in Karbala, Karbala, when will we meet again, Ya Hussein? When under your dome will I grieve again? From Najaf I'll walk until Karbala, Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala, Karbala. I left my heart in Karbala, Karbala. From Karbala, Karbala, Karbala to Karbala, Karbala, Karbala. I left my heart in Karbala. يا رب الحسين بحق الحسين اشف صدر الحسين بظهور الحجة يا رب الحجة بحق الحجة اشف صدر الحجة بظهور الحجة صل على محمد وآل محمد.
زيارة وارث. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله. السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله. السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله. السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى. السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء. السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها. وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين. وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي. وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا. وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي. وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله. بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله. لقد عظمت الرزية وجلت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل السماوات والأرض.
فلعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتهيأت لقتالك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. قصدت زيارتك أسأل الله بالشأن الذي لك عنده وبالمحل الذي لك لديه أن يصلي على محمد وآل محمد وأن يجعلنا معكم في الدنيا والآخرة. دعاء الحجة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين صلوات.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Before we conclude, we definitely want to take the opportunity to thank Seyed Abbas, Razavian, for coming and spending these last 12 days with us, coming all the way from Qom. We know it's difficult to leave our family behind, but we really appreciate him traveling here to spend this time with us. So please, for the well-being of himself and his family, please recite aloud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal farajahum. Also, as Sayyid Abbas mentioned, we are all greatly indebted to all of the volunteers, all the brothers and sisters who dedicated their time and efforts to make this program happen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them the shafa of the Ahlul Bayt for them and all of us, to allow us to get closer to them during this holy month and the remaining time. That concludes our programs. Inshallah, in the upcoming weeks, as we've mentioned earlier, Yasin we're looking forward to starting up more regular programs for the community. Inshallah, in the next few weeks, we'll be launching the Wali al-Asr Academy that is starting the Sunday school for the young students this year. We'll be starting up, and now that the building is available for occupancy for us to use, inshallah, we will be hopefully getting our regular programs going again soon. Last but not least, as a help, there is some tabaruk served. Yes, please come from the right side. I'm sorry. Oh yes, sorry. He had to translate for me. Yes, sisters, please serve first for the brothers, and actually, if everyone can help us, we need to get cleaned up, get the school grounds cleaned up this evening. If you see any trash on the ground, sometimes the little people, tend to leave trash behind. Please help us pick up any trash so we can leave the school nice and clean. And we'll also be moving the chairs and the tables back at the end. But so if you're able to stick around and help us do that, we greatly appreciate it. Inshallah, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.